Hunter Brook is reporting some ties that are suspicious between the Memphis Grizzlies owner and the war in Russia and the Ukraine. So, Pablo, get us caught up to date, please, on some complicated subject matter here that Adam Silver, I'm sure, does not want to deal with today.
Yeah, a lot to get to, Dan. Hi, guys. Does Jessica have sleep apnea? Because I have sleep apnea, and I feel like she might need a CPAP machine. Like, that's... I gotta wear a Darth Vader mask to go to bed.
Not edited. We're not making that up. I couldn't believe it.
Wow. That's how Jumpin' Charlie snores.
Speaking of trying to muffle the truth, though, yeah, look, I have a whole, at this point, mission/curse that I try to uphold, which is explaining to everybody who the richest people in sports are and what they're actually doing. And so it turns out one of the 5 richest owners in sports is the guy who owns the Memphis Grizzlies. And I'm trying to glance in the tiny window that I have on my computer at the shipping container. I don't know if you guys ever thought about who owns the Memphis Grizzlies. If you had any idea.
Yeah, my boy. Timberlake, right?
So this is the funny part about the Timberlake thing. So Timberlake is an owner of the Memphis Grizzlies. He's one of the limited partners of the Memphis Grizzlies. The actual owner
isn't Peyton Manning?
No, the guy the young guy who wants to play one-on-one against everybody.
I know, but I want to live in this weird hypothetical world where Mannings are supporting drone attacks.
well, they're off to the side, but the real owner, Robert Pera, the controlling majority owner, I am told separately that he was once told by a woman he met out one night that he, in fact, was not the owner of the Memphis Grizzlies because she had read that Justin Timberlake was the owner of the Memphis Grizzlies, and Robert Pera, that owner, was so mad that he threatened to buy out the rest of his minority owners because, how embarrassing to be the real guy only for Timberlake to get your shine. But this whole thing is about okay, so who is Robert Pera and where did he come from? And Robert Pera, who is at last estimation, I'm looking at it, worth over $30 billion. He is a former Apple engineer who started a company called Ubiquiti. And Ubiquiti, I don't know if you guys know this company at all, but they make really good Wi-Fi products and routers and stuff. And so what Hunter Brook Media and Sam Koppelman, who's our guest on the show today, discovered after 6 months of their own investigation is that this company, despite sanctions being placed against Russia, in fact, Ubiquiti routers and products and antennae are being used to enable the war in Ukraine, the war against Ukraine. These are the very devices that Russian soldiers have been using in what is modern warfare, in a series of what the United Nations has now called crimes against humanity. And we just escalated a lot there from Timberlake to these photos, but that's kind of what sports are like now. Wait a minute, that guy's doing funding that?
Yeah, so this is the part, though, that I want to get in front of people, Pablo, because I believe your Kawhi story is just easier to play with, right? It's just got stuff that's not life and death, that's silly and funny and intrigue and espionage, but it's not this. So, again, I will say that Hunter Brook is doing the reporting, yes. And I don't think this story is going to catch because I think it's too complicated on subject matter and people are going to move away after the initial aggregated headlines because the media is dead. So please explain to people why the reporting on this is important. And what Adam Silver's supposed to do here, because he's faced with unprecedented things that he's not equipped to lead against, because who's thought of this as one of the things that makes, an appearance as a commissioner? Yeah,
I mean, are we vetting who these owners are and how they're making their money and continue to make their money once they're in the league? A fun sort of juxtaposition here is that Robert Pera's most famous employee is Ja Morant. He is currently the face of the foremost weapons scandal in the NBA. And meanwhile, Robert Pera, according to Hunter Brook's 6-month investigation, which involved undercover reporting to buy these very devices and ship them in a circumvention of sanctions because of the war in Ukraine, ship them to the war front in Russia. Plus certificates, letters written to the third-party vendors that Robert Pera's Ubiquiti does not seem interested in actually finding out about. Plus, just a series of just calls and bits of testimony from Ukrainians who are watching this product, a super majority of which comprises, it seems, the technology that Russia is using to wage, again, what the United Nations calls crimes against humanity. It raises the question of, do we care? Do they care? And the very basic sort of technological question is very simple, right? Like, you're out in the woods and your cell phone has bad reception and you wish you had Wi-Fi. Robert Pera, Ubiquity, have made a device that actually solves that problem. It creates a Wi-Fi network out in remote locations, and the premise was we're going to make the internet accessible to everybody. It turns out that it's being used not only in Russia, but also in Iran, which Robert Pera's Ubiquity has previously had to answer for from the US government. And Robert Pera said back in 2014 that if this happens again, he'll be in big trouble. That's effectively a paraphrase of a quote that's in the episode. We're showing that it seems to be happening again in another war zone. And the victims, of course, could not be more serious in terms of the consideration we should be paying them. And so what will the government do? What will the NBA do, Dan? I find that the through line here is that the NBA is so PR focused that the thing they care about the most is, frankly, will the US government do something to make us look bad? That was the story in the gambling scandal. Oh no, the FBI came out and they made us look like we didn't do our jobs. That was a problem for them. In this case, that is the thing that I think is the next big domino to tip over. But in the meantime, I do think sports fans should probably know, hey, this is the real weapons scandal happening in the NBA right now.
It'd be easier for them to know if it wasn't distracting to hear both police sirens and what sounds like a dryer behind you. Are you drying? Are you drying sneakers? What are you drying?
Delicate or heavy cycle?
I thought I powered off the dryer. My dryer technology is not good enough.
What's in there? Is there a basketball in there? Like, what heavy thing did you put in the dryer? Or is it just an assortment of wet towels, lopsided, banging against?
Hold on, you guys have me drying sneakers.
That's what just sounded like.
Weather's been bad.
Well, what is it? What's
so three things are happening right now, okay? I have a dryer that I thought was deactivated. I got my neighbors doing a gut renovation of their apartment, and I have the NYPD outside doing something in the snow.
Did you move? Are you on the move from authorities that are trying? Look, you're bothering very important people. You're bothering very important people with reporting that people don't want in the light of day. You think Adam Silver wants to be dealing with this from you?
I am told reliably that I am a pain in Adam Silver's ass at this point. We asked for comment from all of these entities, and Hunter Brook, again, I credit their investigation, partnering with them on this. It's a lonely world trying to be the guy who angers people who have, again, $30 billion in the case of Robert Pera,
here's the
or
thing,
$150 billion in the case of Steve Ballmer.
I believe that we no longer live in an environment that absorbs shame or even polite society. So trying to do journalism in these times when the rules are totally different make me suspicious that all of this months of reporting that are required to put this in the light of day will disappear in 12 hours because it's subject matter that is too hard for the daily sports argument machine to talk about.
Oh, look, I think that very few other networks, you are also on an island here. I don't think I've gotten 0 calls about, hey, can you come on our show to talk about the crimes against humanity story and Robert Pera? So thank you guys for making time. But also, I do think, like, the whole premise of the show is this story, when you see it unfold in an episode, is actually pretty, I will say this at the risk of tooting my own horn, it's pretty entertaining, right? It's not boring. And so the question is, can the attention span of the sports audience even withstand the attempt to make this interesting for you? We've melted cheese. We got Timberlake, we got Kevin Hart, we got a bunch of, we have one-on-one games against Tony Allen and Michael Jordan that never happened. We have an NBA owner saying about Robert Pera, no one knows where his sales are coming from. Like, this is a mystery in the league we're solving for the first time with some celebrity around it. but we can only bring, the horse to water.
You're selling, but Pablo Torre finds out is regularly doing stuff like this. But I need to point out again, this is the 6-month work of Hunter Brook here. He is just showcasing the work because the media is more and more fractured, and you require certain partnerships to get work like this done.
Yes.
Work that the billionaires would prevent in every way from having done because it costs lawyers a lot of money. It costs a lot of money to get this work done, and Memphis and the NBA don't want you to see any of it.
Yeah, look, Hunter Brook is the entity we partnered with, just briefly, when we investigated Ishbia with Hunter Brook, the Chinese brainwaves with Hunter Brook, and now this with Hunter Brook. We need more, the thing I want to be very clear about this, I can be territorial in terms of trying to establish why we do what we do, but Lord, I would welcome help. I would love to platform other journalists who are doing this stuff, because the more of us that are doing it, the harder it is for the richest people in the world to actually ignore the findings.
Pablo, the New England Patriots built themselves up after losing Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. They tried to draft Tom Brady's replacement in Mac Jones. They whiffed on that. And then they got Drake May, and now they're back in the Super Bowl, all before Joel Embiid made it to a conference final. That's a wrap on the process, right? You give up.
They lost by 40 to Charlotte.
That's
yesterday.
it. That's it on the process. Just stop. Just hang it up.
Why?
Even if they were to be successful, it wasn't because of the process at this point. That's it.
Charlotte was up 50 in the third quarter, and Embiid wasn't playing. Up 50 yesterday.
I'm trying to talk about war crimes, and you're bringing me Joel Embiid's knees. Really?
Guy never plays. Less than 50% of the
We're all
games.
trying to embrace us being able to say into a microphone when we had that one wrong.
This is what Miami's been reduced to.
Have you thought about Robert
The
Pera's
Canes,
team?
the Canes are out of the news cycle, and now all you got is this.
Have
You're
you
doing
thought about
Sixers
Robert
stuff
Pera's
again.
team potentially having Terry Rozier on that roster?
Well, Pablo, I have seen that the sports media and national media has grabbed you recently because they love talking about the sports betting stuff, and you come in and you talk about the overarching point shaving and indictment. So in the recent rounds you've made on that particular story that the NBA would also like you to not be making the rounds about, what have been the most interesting details recently?
Oh, God. I mean, the fact that this stuff is not even close to over. I mean, we are in the position of being a tiny newsroom that is trying to chase the biggest stories that are actively being investigated by the Fed. So when the federal government drops that big indictment, this is now the Eastern District of Pennsylvania, by the way. Right? I'm not even on their email list. I'm getting the emails from the Eastern District of New York, which is what was doing the Operation Nothing But Bet stuff and Operation Royal Flush, right? The NBA side stuff. That's New York. Now Pennsylvania's in this with the college kids, with the college games. And that, to say the obvious thing, right? Those are the soft targets that are most easily compromised because their cost-benefit analysis of what am I making salary-wise versus what could I be making if I were to manipulate games, they've always been the biggest targets. And so when the FBI and the Eastern District of Pennsylvania get in on that, what we're doing is scrambling to catch up because God knows that we have a list of names that are popping up before we can publish. And so the most interesting thing to me is that we have not seen the bottom of the rabbit hole on that yet. There are more NBA characters that we are trying to be responsible in our reporting before we name. There are characters that are obscure, that only really some NBA degenerate fans would recognize. But the college stuff is unbelievable.
That's not the
dryer.
That's not the dryer. That's people doing work upstairs, right?
That's the gut renovation.
Yeah, that's not the dryer. Okay.
Yeah, they don't. By the way, they also my neighbors, like the national media, doesn't give a shit that I'm investigating some of the foremost billionaires.
So I have fewer than 30 seconds left. Please help me implore and beg both the sports media and the media to pay attention to this Hunter Brook reporting. Please tell me what I need to do to get this as subject matter the way that they run to you the moment that you do anything about Kawhi or sports betting.
Yeah. In 30 seconds, what I would say is that if you spent a second thinking about how should we punish Ja Morant for waving around a gun, you should spare a couple of minutes for an investigation that took 6 months into the owner of the team, his boss, who is enabling Russia's drone war and effectively powering, according to this reporting, crimes against humanity according to the United Nations. The real weapons scandal that the NBA has to make a decision on how to respond to is not Ja Morant waving guns on Instagram, as serious as that may be. It's drone warfare that is being enabled by the technology of his owner, who by now has been warned about how his technology winds up in Iran and now in Russia, according to this reporting. So just keep that in mind the next time you think about, what's a controversy in the NBA? There might be something even bigger than that.